Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome your host, Pippa Evans. Hi, hello everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming along to this event here at the RSA. 7 serious jokes about climate change. Hello to our online viewers as well. Thank you for joining us. So seven serious jokes. We know that jokes aren't normally here at the RSA, so we'll be gentle with you all. The 7 serious jokes about climate change are, of course, based on these 7 dimensions of climate change, which you all know as sleepy, happy, dopey, grumpy, sneezy, angry, and Al Gore. And so what we've done is we've given one of those each to each of our comedians. Will be coming up here and doing a sketch or a joke or something for your entertainment. Now, it is important that we're here making jokes about this, because what happened was Jonathan Rowson, Dr. Jonathan Rowson, sat here with his little beard, little beardy Rowson. He wrote an article for The Guardian called Seven Dimensions of Action for Climate Change. Catchy title. It was very interesting article. And it was shared 344 times around the world. 344 times around the world. In the same year, Kim Kardashian took a picture of her own bottom. And so many people clicked on it that the internet broke. So the question is really, how can we make climate change as exciting as Kim Kardashian's bottom? And that is what we're aiming to do here tonight. So we've got jokes for you, we've got stand-up comedians, we've got poets, we've got songs, we've got laughter, we've got joy. And we're very excited to do that. It does mean that this is not a normal RSA event. We have put the lectern here so that you feel more comfortable. But it means that we're going to have to ask you to refrain from your usual behavior, so please, no heckling. No throwing of things, no violence, no snogging in the back row, and please, no football shirts. It's very exciting. What we do want is lots of raucous laughter and applause. So can we just practice your applause, please? Practice after 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, very good, very good. Ah, yes, very nice, very nice. On occasion, I'm going to just gently say this. On occasion, comedians may talk to you and ask you to interact with them. It's not something to be frightened of. It'll probably be quite gentle. For example, hello, what's your name? Hi, Matthew. What do you do? You design restaurants. This is not a normal comedy club. Wow. What kind of restaurants do you design? Ones you might eat. Matthew, he's on it. Boom! Ones you might eat in. Which is the restaurant you're most proud of designing? Please say McDonald's, Uxbridge. Always the latest one. Good answer, Matthew. I hope that one of your employees is watching. Great, so that's great. Sometimes, so that's pretty gentle, wasn't it? Pretty gentle. Lovely, Matthew. But also we might ask for a group response for something. So we're just going to do a quick group response experiment. Knock, knock. Yeah. Climate change. Deniers. A climate change knock, knock joke written just for you, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got lots to go on. Are you ready for a great night of comedy? Yes. I can't hear you. Yes. Then, ladies and gentlemen, start your applause. Start it gently. Build it up. Nice and loud. And here to talk about science is Mr. Steve Punt.
Thank you very much. Always a joy to be on first. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, good evening. I have been asked to speak to you about science, or to give it its correct technical name, so-called science. So-called science is an activity carried out by so-called scientists, shadowy, generally anonymous figures intent on one thing, the relentless pursuit of money. These so-called scientists, notorious for their lifestyles, their love of cutting-edge gadgetry, and their trips to exotic locations, are remorseless in their pursuit of the vast, almost incomprehensible sums of money at stake in the form of the huge, limitless pool of cash known as research grants. These enormous sums are used to fund their frivolous trips to glaciers and ice packs, their luggage bursting with designer sweaters and padded anoraks, there to play with their boys' toys, drilling ice cores and sending balloons up into the atmosphere to measure carbon so-called dioxide. The substance which so-called science ludicrously claims can warm the entire Earth, despite it being just a tiny molecule, consisting of just 2 oxygen atoms and 1 of carbon. These atoms themselves consisting largely of nothing, and yet, absurdly, these conveniently invisible so-called molecules are supposedly able to form an enormous duvet round the Earth. Self-evidently nonsense. Yet, this is the so-called theory that provides the pretext for the true purpose of so-called science, which is, of course, the wholesale transfer of research grants from taxpayers to university and state-sponsored so-called climatology departments. Fortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there are a few brave and gallant souls who have dedicated themselves to exposing so-called science. These few noble men and women, supported only by a few $100 million donations from the modest profits of hard-pressed oil and energy multinationals, have volunteered in exchange for mere salaries and free holidays to expose this so-called science for what it is: a systematic attempt to draw inferences from large-scale data gathering, and fearlessly to reveal the sinister web of atmospherics researchers, glaciologists and oceanographers who, communicating only through an impenetrable, heavily encrypted system of obscure journals and peer-reviewed research papers, have constructed a conspiracy of such magnitude that it has taken in the Chinese government, the American government, the BBC, and 97% of all so-called scientists. It has not, of course, taken in the splendid Australians, who have been very fortunate, of course, because the propaganda ceased to be beamed in there after their latest heat wave was hot enough to melt all their satellite dishes. Would that we could all be so lucky. But to defeat this conspiracy, 2 things are important. Fortunately, firstly, the world of journalism and the media is mercifully mostly free of people brainwashed by degrees in so-called science. Many influential columnists and commentators have studied proper, useful subjects like classics, history, land economy, or English literature, and are easily able to dismantle these so-called statistical facts and measurements of science through their skill in rhetoric, sarcasm, and editing. Secondly, those who have studied a proper hard science, such as theoretical psychology, will know that human beings are predisposed to believe what they want to believe, and that the job of scientists is to overcome emotional, political, financial, and inertial objections to change through the steady accumulation of evidence to the point where no reasonable doubt can remain. But it is the job of non-scientists to say, "Oh, yes, but what do we mean by reasonable? This is all just a question of semantics," and carry on bullshitting like that for another few decades until the first really big chunk of the Antarctic lands in the sea and a really big city gets permanently flooded, at which point, fair enough, the game's up. But until that time, ladies and gentlemen, we do not need to listen to the predictions of so-called science. Look at its track record. Science predicted the existence of a self-replicating molecule which carries inheritance. Pah! Science predicted the observed position of a star would change during an eclipse as the light bent round the sun. Pah! Science predicted the course of a comet so accurately we were able to land on it at 33,000 miles an hour. What does this tell you about science? It tells you, obviously, that science is by far the most reliable way we have of observing and predicting. It is therefore a major problem for any democratic society, which believes that all opinions count and everyone's view is equally valid. So-called science strikes at the very heart of our most cherished belief that all shall be free to talk complete bollocks for money. It must be fought, for what makes us human is our stupidity, our laziness, our greed, our stubbornness. To err is human, as Alexander Pope said. And those of you with a proper degree in English literature will know. That is, if you're not up in a balloon all day looking for invisible magic duvet molecules. Science, because it constantly adjusts itself to the evidence, will eventually be proved correct, because it always is. And belatedly, we will scramble to adjust in a last-minute frantic rush, because we always do. Why humans are like this, we do not know. And if so-called science was any use, someone would have found out. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are the names we give to the toilets. My name's Rob Orton. I come from York. I bought an I Heart NY t-shirt and I crossed out the N with a permanent marker, a Pentel M50 for all the permanent marker experts. I'm on tour at the moment, just doing one night. Tonight. Thanks for coming. Right. I was issued with technology and climate change as a subject, so I wrote a piece on it. I'm going to read this off my favourite size of paper. Does anyone know what size of paper that is? A4. A4, yes. Or as I like to call it, a 4. This is a 4. Isn't it? It's odd that a 4 is bigger than a 5. Okay, I loosely based this on the song A Wonderful World. I see technology, you know, cars and stuff like that. Light bulbs and a kettle when I'm sitting in my flat and I think to myself, what a wonderfully technologically advanced, invincible world. I've got a mobile phone and a TV I can watch, Microsoft Word, microwaved soft meal, oh, top notch. And I think to myself, and I think to myself, I'm really lucky to live in such a wonderfully technologically advanced, invincible world. The colours of notification circles, so circular and red upon my phone screen. Facebook friend request sunset. I see it in my dreams. Technology, it's there for me, allows me to fly over the big blue sea, and I think to myself, oh, hold on a minute. What's this? Planet getting hotograph. Photo of melting ice cap. How can I care when I've got this brand spanking new photo collage app? Now it must be an app that rebuilds an ice cap I'm sure someone is working on an ice cap app. So I'll keep telling myself, it's a wonderfully technological, advanced, invincible world, and this place is just going to keep getting better and better and better and more advanced, and the more technologically advanced we get, the more likely it is that we are going to be able to live on this place forever. People say the climate is changing for the worse, but where I live it stays the same. I live in Walthamstow, and we don't have hurricanes. And part of me thinks, what a wonderful world. It is. It is definitely. Absolutely brilliant. It's fine. Come on, let's go and watch Paddington. It's Orange Wednesday tomorrow, isn't it? Orange Wednesday. Yeah, it's cinema. What about rising water levels? No, don't concern yourselves with them. Someone just retweeted your retweet. Look. Result. What about all the trees that we're losing? Who needs a tree when you can look at a picture of a tree on your laptop? There's loads of trees. Infinite tree. If the Arctic ice melts, we can build the Arctic ice from scratch, from natural resources and white acrylic paint. Or we could make it from white plastic, so it looks like it was made by Apple. Imagine how white that would be. An Arctic made by Apple. There's no white like apple white. Wonderful world. Wonderful world. What? Humans are so good at technology. Someone is definitely building an anti-hurricane missile as we speak. I'm sure of it. Come on, let's do the technological advance dance. I don't want to do that dance. You can't fire a missile at a hurricane. I think you'll find you can. Somebody's got it covered. Don't worry about it. Too technical for you, Rob. Really clever people are working on ways to make it all okay, using words we have never even heard of, developing technologies to save us. Look, if water levels rise, we can just build houses under the water. No, we can't. We can't do that. This is our only chance. Look, we'll get to swim to work. Instead of driving. How's that sound? Well, when you put it like that, it does sound like quite good fun. Windsurfing? Well, I've never tried it, but I'll give it a go. Wonderful world, mate. Wonderful world. You've seen Waterworld, haven't you? Waterworld. Oh, I do quite like that. I like that, yeah. Kevin Costner? Yeah, he was all right in the sea, wasn't he? But are you sure that the sea and technology mix? Technology. Do I need to say more? Haven't you seen a seahorse? They are very technical. But if the world is underwater, we won't be able to ask Siri about the threats of climate change because our phones will be all wet and there won't be any rice to dry our phones in because all the rice will be wet. Wet rice won't fix wet phone. Yeah, but you're forgetting the rice fields will soak up all the water, won't they, Rob? No! They won't! Look, Rob, someone's working on some technology somewhere. They've got to be. No, it's not for you to worry about. Someone else is doing it. It doesn't need to be you. It doesn't. Like who? If it's not me, who's doing it? I need to do something. I try. Anything. Who's doing it? Sir David Attenborough. He's on the case. Really? You know, somebody told me that every time we make a decision to buy a regular light bulb instead of an energy-saving light bulb, David Attenborough gets a dead leg. Out of nowhere. Just when he's walking about like some sort of It's a Wonderful Life angel getting its wings bell-ringing type deal, but he gets a dead leg. Wonderful life. Wonderful world. It is, isn't it? It is, but, you know, that thing you were saying about building the ice caps from scratch with plastic, because we're so good with technology, I'm not sure that that's going to work. It will. There isn't going to be any people to build it. Well, we will kind of devolve back into fish. Then when the planet sorts itself out, we will start evolving into humans again. But we are humans now, this is it. And it took us so long to get to this point. All right, well, we'll build some dams. Dams. Big dams. Dams. Dams that are somehow cold on the inside. Like the opposite of radiators. To cool down the water. Fibre optic water. We'll use new technology to make new stuff. What kind of stuff? Ozone layer made from 3G wireless cling film. No. Bluetooth polar bear with megabytes for blood cells. No. Rainforest made from selfie sticks. No. Look, I'm just going to try and buy the right light bulbs. Turn everything off that I can. And mainly, just try to learn to recycle the hell out of everything and just try and do my best and do what I can to try and save whatever I can to make sure we just try to do something to make the most of this beautiful place that we've been born onto. Thank you very much.
Keep that applause going and please welcome Jessica Fosticue.
Hello, hello. You all right? Good. I'm here to talk to you about the law. That classic comedy goldmine. That's why you're always seeing comedians sneaking into the back of courtrooms trying to pick up a little bit of hilariously harrowing cross-examination or Latin. So it still isn't illegal enough to use up all of our fossil fuels. That's baffling, seeing as they're... well, we really need to stop using them up. Yet we're wussing around with it. Talk is easy, but it seems that to change the law is too sort of firm and impossible to ignore. So we find ourselves fearing it like fake boobies. The UK's 2008 Climate Change Act brought in a carbon budget. A budget, that's like a limit, but one that you can routinely go over. What were we thinking? Haven't they seen grand designs? I wonder if drink driving would have reduced sixfold if in 1967 they brought in blood alcohol budgets. One man's clapping's worse than none at all, but we'll carry on. Can you imagine it in the pub? Yeah, do you know what? I will have another pint, actually, Cheryl. I know that it looks like I'm hammered, but next week I'm planning a very quiet time. The word finite even sounds like something sort of precious, doesn't it? So it's a wonder that we're not being sturdier about not using it all up. There's been progress on a national level, but not so much on an international level. And real change will require a global commitment, not a global commitment. That's a disco. And we're only allowed one of those once we've got a new international law. We have to all act together. Imagine if we had to listen to a solo member of One Direction sing. It would break our hearts. So the idea is that we bring in a new law of ecocide. I know what you're thinking. It sounds a bit dramatic, but that never held Zsa Gabor back. And she's been allowed to actually exist for 97 years. So I think the law should. This new international law has been being suggested since 1972, yet it's still not a thing, a bit like hoverboards. Don't go asking the internet, though. To them, apparently, the latter is more distressing. If ecocide was added to the Rome Statute, it would become the 5th crime against peace. The first 4 are genocide, wars against humanity, war crimes, and robbing thick. The law of ecocide would criminalise the following. This is the beginning of the wording of that new law. Extensive destruction, damage to or loss of ecosystems of a given territory, whether by human agency, bless you, or other... That's not in it. That isn't in the law. Whether by human agency or other causes. That wording rightly leaves open the possibility of there being a violent robot revolution. Good. We all know that is a possibility because we've all seen the documentary Terminator. The wording of the law continues, to such an extent that peaceful enjoyment by the inhabitants of that territory will be severely diminished. Good. Doesn't affect tourists. That means we are allowed to keep deforesting centre parks. I went to centre parks once and I can't believe it, they made me park round the edge. I don't know if you've been. Very frustrating. So to find out more, because clearly I'm not understanding it very fully, I watched the TED talk by this amazing lady, an actual barrister called Polly Higgins, who is doing more single-handedly, doing loads single-handedly to progress the enactment of this new law of ecocide. Imagine Captain Planet without a green mullet. And the general invincibility. I got the entire series of Captain Planet, the classic cartoon from the 90s, on VHS for £1, and it's not very good. Unfortunately, he just wins very easily looking at it as an adult. He had the combined powers of earth, wind, fire, and water, and love. Imagine even he would still manage to get scuppered by US Congress. So, Polly says that Planet Earth needs a good lawyer. I don't know if that one from Broadchurch is free. She looks brilliant. She says that you can tell that the current environmental law isn't working just by looking at the Amazon. It's quite dangerous to look at the Amazon. You may end up spending more money than you've got. We found your level. Perfect. She says that in that wording of that law, that inhabitants is the most important word, because it means that we're not just going to protect humans, but all the animals that are in that territory as well. I really love animals. You can tell I do because I've worn a top covered in animals. That it's an indiscriminate animal. I don't know what animal it is. No one does. It could even be a rat. Also, it will cover problems. I keep just making one person impressed, which as a comedian means I'm really not doing my job. So ecocide means that crimes don't have to be human caused. They can be not human caused. Unfortunately, she goes on to explain, I was wrong. It doesn't mean robots. It means that this destruction can be caused by like tsunamis or floods, which means, obviously logically, that we'll be having to put quite a lot of water in prison. A number of complaints will emerge. Right? People go, no, I'm not going to share a cell with a puddle. I like the idea of the Atlantic having to go into prison and making friends with like the hardest gangster and making him his prison wife. Although I imagine water would be quite a sloppy kisser. And the gangster would be like, have you been eating fish again? The water would have to go to prison for rising sea levels. And he'd be going, what are you in for? Oh, I just got above myself. Yeah, you were right to groan. Polly explains that we'll be putting a legal duty of care onto nations. So I thought what best thing is to have a look at all the nations' outlines and see which ones would make the best sort of two parents. I reckon Slovenia, it looks, if you look closely enough, like a little bit like a pram. And that could get together, please, and be our parent with Norway, because it's like a spoon. In international criminal law, we have superior responsibility, Polly explains. We have that in my flat too. If the hoovering needs doing, my boyfriend, my partner's superior responsibility compared to that of mine. She explains what that really means, though, is that we can eventually be able to prosecute leaders, the people, she explains, at the top of the triangle, ancient Egyptian builders. I mean, I think we can all agree I'm having fun. She says there are objections from industry, and there are massive objections from industry, and she likens it to like when Wilberforce tried to get rid of, started getting rid of slavery, and people went, no, our entire economy would collapse. And Shell have piped up quite specifically to say that were we to make it illegal to finish up all our fossil fuels, then there'd be this carbon bubble. It makes me think of an ex, sort of, or someone you're going out with, like a mentally ill partner. Shell sound like, don't they? Going, if you dump me, I'll kill myself. It do, and it's not cool. We've all had an ex like that, which is code for I've said that. And there's other things they can do. I think Shell should, like, you know, when the people that ran all the slaves companies, when slavery was abolished, they went into other lines of work. They were given subsidies instead to be able to sell china and tea and stuff like that. So Shell could go into other things, couldn't they? There's plenty they could do. They could look for inspiration anywhere. Just on my way here tonight in Trafalgar Square, I saw a man making a perfectly good living, it looked like, out of pillow fights. Thank you.
Jess Foster-Q! Oh, good. Hi, everyone. I came back. I was doing offside introductions, but the microphone wasn't on, so there was just no introduction. You probably thought I was doing a really terrible job for a host. Well, I just wanted to check in with you, check you're all right. How are you? Good, good, okay. Now, Dan, I'm going to say his name wrong, Ariely, he said that if you wanted to come up, if you wanted to invent a problem that nobody cared about, you'd probably come up with global warming. And I think that's a great quote, obviously. But you're all here, so you must care about global warming. So I think it's time, because normally, of course, when you do your events, you get a Q&A, but you don't get that today. Hi! So hello, sir. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick. And Nick, how serious are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
About 6.
10 from the front, you've been outed. Serious Nick. So, Serious Nick, how serious do you feel about climate change?
About 10.
10. And is your job like king of climate change, or is this is it a hobby, or?
No, I'm trying to get UK television companies to pay better attention to climate change.
Hello. Who can top that in doing their bit? Anyone? That's more than recycling, okay? What are you doing? Can you do better? Oh, hello. Serious Nick's been challenged. What's your name?
Hannah.
Hannah, how serious are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Judging by the giggling, I think it's less than Nick.
3.
3. And what is your role? I'm going to lean on you. Don't be frightened. What is your role that is making the world a better place?
I'm a government climate science advisor.
Oh, Nick! Oh, see, that's the caliber of people. Is anyone here just a plumber? Anyone? No. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad that you're all right and we're on the right path. Are you ready for some more comedy? Yeah. Then please welcome the wonderful Holly Byrne.
Hello, world! Hello! Isn't it good to be alive? Oh, what? Oh, these old ragtags? Just a Jane Norman original. I like to have fun with fabrics. How about you? She likes to have fun with fabrics. Go show off your fabrics. Look how much fun she's having with her fabrics. She really is. You really are having fun, aren't you? Have we met? Huh? Have we met? You remind me, you've got a... never pass the Bechdel test. That's right, I can't even be in a room with another woman, never mind talk to one. Ah, so sue me. That's right, sue me. Sue me. Yeah, sue me. Sue me. Sue me. Sue me. You sue me. No, me no sue. You sue me. Me no sue, you sue me. You sue me. Me no sue, you sue me. Yes, you sue me. Yeah. Oh, words. Words. You got me. I'm having a love affair with a past participle. You do. You. No, you. No, who? No, you do. You remind me. You remind me so much of Jim. That's right, Jim. You've got Jim's face. He's got Jim's face. He's got Jim's nosy nose. He's just a nose like little Jim's nosy nose. Jim's hair, that big bush of hair. Oh, Jim, that face. Do you remember, Jim? Do you remember when we met? Do you remember? Do you remember the time we met back in Africa in '76, Jim? Do you remember? Do you remember, Jim? Do you remember how what was I doing, Jim? I was leaping, wasn't I? I was leaping with the buffalo on the mud plains in Africa. How I leapt and I leapt and I leapt, Jim. Do you remember how I leapt with those beautiful beasts? Oh, that's right, Jim. It was so beautiful, so free to be leaping with them naked side by side with the buffalo, Jim. Do you remember? Oh, I felt so free, so vigorous, so vital, so young, Jim. Do you remember on the plains in Africa? Do you remember, Jim? And then, Jim, you appeared. The buffalo, it took one look at you, and it sensed a threat, Jim. It sensed a threat, didn't it, Jim? But, Jim, do you remember that day, how you saved me? Do you remember? Come on. Come on. Come on. Hold my hand, Jim, like you held it that time. That's right, Jim. That's it, Jim. Do you remember, Jim, what we did that night? It was so long ago, back in '76. He was such a young man then. Weren't you, Jim? Do you remember how we danced? That's it, Jim. The man always leads, Jim. Do you remember? That's it, Jim. That's it. It was so beautiful, just like that, Jim. But do you remember, Jim, those mud plains and those buffalo? Do you remember? Oh, Jim, how much you've aged. It's such a sad sight to see, isn't it, Jim? But it's funny because I went back there recently, Jim. Keep dancing. I went back there recently and I noticed there were no mud plains, Jim. There were no buffalo, Jim. There were no plants. There was nothing, Jim. It was barren, Jim. There was nothing there. And Jim, you're a writer, aren't you? He was back then. He was a writer. He can't remember, poor thing. Oh, how sad it's gotten. Oh, how sad it is. He can't even remember what he used to do. He was a fine writer. He was a journalist. He was a writer. He wrote poetry, didn't you, Jim? You wrote essays, Jim. You wrote theater, Jim. You wrote cinema, Jim. Oh, yes, he was quite prolific. I'm surprised you never heard of him. Oh, that's right, Jim. But, Jim, in all these writings, in the films I used to see of yours, in the plays I used to see of yours, in the books I read, in the poetry I read, in the conversation with our children, Jim, I never once was told, Jim, you never once told me that those buffaloes are gone. You never once told me they were in danger, Jim. You never once told me that those mud plains were no more. And why, Jim? Why keep this to yourself? Why keep this secret to yourself, Jim? Why, Jim? Why are you turning your back on the whole situation, Jim? Exactly, Jim. Why don't you be free and sing it from the rooftops, Jim? Why didn't you tell everybody? But that's it, Jim. Next time, Jim. Next time you write a movie. You're speaking on the radio as you have a penchant for, or if you're penning another series of Friends, why don't you Tell us about what's happening in the world, Jim. Why don't you talk to us, explain what's happening to our planet? Because now, when I go back to Africa, my memories aren't quite the same as what I see these days, Jim.
That's Holly Byrne, everybody! Holly Byrne, and please now welcome Mr. Marcus Brigstock!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Occasionally at these sorts of things, you know, trying to balance what's funny with what's true and what's interesting can be problematic. And then you prepare something, as I have, and then completely without knowing it, the act right before you ends up doing almost exactly the same stuff. So I am more than a little bit scuppered. I will be winging it slightly. Have we? Do we? Have we? I'd like to confirm that we haven't. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk a little bit about democracy, and that's roughly what it would look like. A lot of shouting children with mouths open, hoping that at the end of the protest there'll be hummus. Democracy may be the enemy of progress where climate change is concerned for the time being, but we'll try and figure that out. Can anybody here tell me, because you're probably relatively intelligent, I mean, I've seen a lot of you, instead of laughing, doing some very good nods. It tells the person next to you that you didn't really find it funny, but you knew the fact and you understood the data. There is, as far as I'm aware, only one creature on Earth that will naturally, as part of its nature, hunt man. Can anybody tell me what that creature is? Not man, in fact, no. Okay, so there are two. There are two. And because you've been unhelpful, that may happen now. Not woman, no, but well done. Today of all days. How could you? No, anybody? Not the penguin. It isn't the penguin. What kind of weird zoos have you been going to? The taxman. Well, this is way off. You're just entertaining yourselves now. It's the polar bear. The polar bear will naturally hunt human beings, hunt them down and eat them. They will seek us out for food. I went to the Arctic to research climate change, and there's a leaflet you're given when you go to Svalbard as to what to do if you see a polar bear. And basically the first page of the leaflet says, you know, don't go outside on your own. If you are going outside, have a good look before you do. Don't take food with you, not that it makes much difference, but blah, 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 and all of these things. And then the second page tells you what to do if you encounter a polar bear, and it basically says, enjoy the close-up view as it eats you. But the point here is the polar bear is the only creature other than man and the taxman and woman who naturally hunts human beings. So do we not have a democratic duty to destroy the polar bear? I think we do. And I'm very surprised that you don't agree. Okay, by show of hands, ladies and gentlemen, who here believes that climate change is an issue that needs addressing? Raise your hand nice and high if you think that climate change is an issue that needs addressing. That's almost everybody. That's tremendous. Raise your hand, please, if you believe that at least in part the responsibility for that sits with the government. At least in part. So raise your hand if you think the government have some responsibility. That is everybody as well. Raise your hand if you think that businesses, shops and traders have some part to play in dealing with issues surrounding climate change. That, again, is everybody. And raise your hand, please, if you believe that we have a personal responsibility to deal with climate change, at least in part where this is concerned. That is 100% consensus. So there you are. That solved it. Well, democracy is not an issue then, is it? You've left your hand up, which I assume means you agree with all the points I raised, but I'm guessing it's a question.
No, I didn't raise my hand for any of the points.
You didn't raise your hand? Thank God for that. Excellent, excellent. You're the weird contrarian. No wonder you're sitting at the back in the dark. You should be ashamed of yourself. But I did that deliberately because, you see, this is the point. It's all very well sitting here nodding and going, yes, yes, yes. But how do we communicate this beyond here? I mean, there's you. If we can get her, if we can change your mind, it's very difficult. I think this is an enormously problematic issue, you know, because we're all those of you who voted that you agreed with those things. How many of you are convinced? Really convinced that you are right? And I don't mind leading the charge on this. I think that I'm right on this. Really convinced. Really, quite a few of you are like, yeah, I am, but I'm too embarrassed to say. Still, that's more than half of us. So, and how far are you willing to go, given that you're certain that you're right, to change people's minds? I'll fight a person. See, it's difficult. It's very difficult for a government to convince people to vote for them when part of their agenda is fixing climate change. Because despite what the views may be of some of the people in this room, the solutions are not very appealing to most of us. Insulate properly, spend money insulating your house properly, and you may make, over the next 10 to 20 years, an 11% saving on your... Oh, fuck me, that's sexy. Oh, Christ, I'm actually turned on. Oh, what a solution that is. Go to fewer places, drive less, and shop more sustainably and eat less meat. Oh, I think I just... Did you? Because it is. It's exciting, sexy stuff, isn't it? Just makes me so fizzy. It's difficult. I don't know how people convince. So maybe we do what China does. You know, maybe we install a dictatorship. I'm not saying that I would be the right sort of person to be a dictator, but I did go to a boarding school. So on the current system, that may be good. I mean, a lot of people are very critical about China, so, you know, there's no point us addressing climate change. China doesn't do anything about it. There's a lot that China doesn't do that's still worth our while. Free and fair elections, human rights, and cheddar being three of the big ones. So, in democracy, then, who do we vote for? Well, you could vote Green, I suppose. You could listen to Russell Brand and do everything apart from not vote. He's the best mouthpiece for the Green Party without realising that he's speaking. Everything he says is pro-Green Party, apart from the fancy stuff about what he wears and people he's had sex with. You could vote for UKIP, I suppose. You could. I wouldn't, though, if I was you. I wouldn't. I mean, you know, they're probably quite a helpful example where this is concerned, because, you know, when I've debated with people, UKIP supporters, about this stuff, and they'll always say, you know, there is no climate change. The climate isn't changing and it never has. Or they'll say it is changing, but it's perfectly fine. I'll be able to grow peach trees on my lawn, and that'll be nice. And then you say, but hang on, no, if we have a climate that changes here so you can grow peach trees, a lot of continental Europe will be underwater, and they love that. Winston Churchill said the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. But that's, and I agree in essence, but that's the problem, isn't it? The elitist slow nods that happen in rooms like this, where people all gather somewhere nice, where clever people come together and go, We are very off-putting. I mean, I'm not, I'm on the telly, but... We're fantastically off-putting. People, you know, people find idiots much more appealing than us, you see? Well, they do, so I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you make it sexy. I mean, the breasts on page 3 have gone from the Sun today. Maybe we replace them with some sustainability solutions. Good fun, good fun. So I don't have a conclusion. I don't have a solution to the issues that are thrown up by existing within a democracy where, you know, fundamentally everybody's opinion on polling day is of equal value. The rest of the time it definitely isn't, by the way, the BBC. But, you know, I don't know how you address it. I don't know how you try and sell these things to people, and it would be even more arrogant than I usually am to suggest that I do know the answer to that. I do know that governments have all governments, dictatorships and democratically elected ones, have a very difficult time of it, because nobody wants to step first. And I wrote a piece about the Copenhagen climate talks some time ago, which achieved practically nothing, because I just watched over the days. I watched it go round and round, and nobody sort of seemed to be willing to go first and really do anything gutsy. And then there was a big fight in the middle of it where some greenies got overexcited and got beaten to crap by the police. So it reminded me of a Dr. Seuss poem, and I'm a big fan of Dr. Seuss. So I wrote this about the Copenhagen climate talks, which was some time ago, but fortunately for my material, nothing's changed. It's not great where the planet's concerned, but there we are. The delegates came and the delegates sat, and they talked till their bums all went flat. Then the delegate said of the country he knew, "We must do something quick, but just what should we do?" So they sat again thinking, and there they stayed seated, sitting and thinking. The planet's been heated. "I think," said a delegate there from Peru, "that we all must agree on some things we could do, like reducing emissions, at least CO2. I will be doing accents, by the way. So they nodded and noted, then vetoed and voted. Then one of them stood up and suddenly quoted, "It's the science, you see, that's the thing that must guide us. When the leaders all get here, they're certain to chide us." So they sat again thinking about what to think, then decided to ponder what colour of ink to use on the paper that they'd all agreed, to be selfless, not greedy, McGreedy. "But how do we choose just what colour to use?" said a delegate there who'd been having a snooze. "We need clear binding targets, definitive action. We all must agree clearly, without more distraction." So they sat again thinking of targets for ink, but the ink in their thinking had started to stink, and they started to think that the ink was a kink in their thinking about the real things they should think. "If the climate needs mending, then this is our chance," said the nuclear delegate sent there by France. "We need to agree on one thing to agree on, something we all want a fixed guarantee on." "Yes," said another, who thought this made sense. "Some value for carbon in dollars or pence." But the mention of money and thoughts of expense had stifled the progress, and things became tense. Then the fella from China, with a smile on his face, I won't do the accent, said, "Who put the carbon there in the first place?" "Wasn't us," said the US. "Then Europe did too." "Well, I don't think we did it," said the small Tuvalu. Then a silence descended, and no words were spoken, till a delegate stood up, voice nervous and broken. "Is there nothing upon which we all can decide? Because on Wednesday my chicken laid eggs that were fried." "We all like a sing-song," said the bloke from down under. But then the great hall was all shouting and thunder. Policemen had entered and were wearing protesters who they'd beaten and flattened like bloodied sou'westers. The police had decided to downplay this crime with prevention, detention and beatings in rhyme. The greenies who'd shouted and asked for decision were now being battered with lethal precision. All sick of inaction and fed up of waiting, all tired of the endless debated placating, they'd risen up, grating, berating and hating, so the police had commenced the related debating. Ban Ki-moon put his head in another man's lap and was last heard muttering something like crap. But the chap next to him said, "It's more like it's poo," so the great hall debated not what they should do, but how to decide between crap, cack and poo. "It is poo, it is cack, it is crap, we agree," which was written and labelled as document 3. "I think if we all find one thing we can agree on, then maybe Brazil might be left with a tree on." So they sat again thinking of trees in Brazil and of glaciers which had retreated uphill, and they thought of the poor folks whose homes were in flood, but less of the protesters covered in blood. They pondered the species so nearly extinct, it's as if they all thought that these things may be linked. "We need a solution, we need action, please," said a lady who'd come from the sinking Maldives. The others all nodded and said it was fact, that the time must be now, not to talk, but to act. Then Obama arrived and said, most rhetorical, "Action is action, and not metaphorical." Wow, they all thought, he must mean allegorical. I love it when Barrett goes all oratorical. "But the problem I have is that Congress won't pass it." "Bugger," said Banky, then sorry, then arse it. Then Brown said, "I've got it. Now how does this strike you? It's simpler when voters already dislike you." He suggested the EU should lead from the front, so the Mail and the Telegraph called him something very unpleasant indeed. So the delegates stared at the text with red marks on, ignoring the gales of laughter from Clarkson. No one was satisfied, nobody won, except the morons convinced it was only the sun. And they blew it and wasted the greatest of chances. Instead, they all frolicked in diplomat dances and decided decisively right there and then that the best way to solve it was to meet up again and decide on a future that's greener and greater, not with action right now, but with something else later. Thank you very much.
Marcus Brigstock! And now keep it going, and welcome Poppy!
Yes, yes, yes. Who knows? Good evening, everyone. Hello, I'm Tom.
I'm Ben.
I'm Matthew, together we're Pappies. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, salute Robert Romney.
Good old Romney.
Mitt's
dad.
We're here to talk about people's behaviour towards climate change, but it's quite a heavy topic. So let's not rush into things.
Yeah.
Let's relax into things a little bit by playing a game. Are you up for that?
Yeah. Yep. I'll tell you what, why don't we play my favourite game in the whole world? Why don't you play my favourite game in the whole world? Let's play Guess Who.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. Does he have long hair?
No.
Is it Tom?
Yes,
Oh,
it is
straight
me.
off the bat.
Incredible.
Straight off the bat.
Okay, my turn. Does he wear glasses?
Yes.
Is it Matthew?
Hey,
I don't know how I do it.
I've got one. Did he want, as a special treat for his girlfriend, shave off all of his pubic hair?
Yes.
I'll tell you what, let's just get on with the message of the message of the piece. The way that we behave towards climate change obviously affects the future.
It's a bit of a shame, though, talking about it, because if we're going to do this talk, it means we haven't got time to perform some of our best sketches. And that's a real shame, isn't it?
Yeah, you can tell from the
really
reaction.
sense it.
Yeah. You can really tell from the way people...
Yeah, because, I mean, there's no time, for example, for this sketch, which we like to call the world's most incompetent censor.
Let me tell you something. You have got to be the cunt I've ever met.
You bleep the word loveliest.
There's no time for that.
There's no time for that. Thank God, because we didn't want to say the C word in front of Romney, did we?
No.
There is no time for this sketch that we like to call the Three Musketeers read out the football results. United versus City, 4-1. Wanderers versus Albion, 4-1. Rovers versus Athletic, 4-1.
And in the cup, United versus Albion, 4-all.
So it's all for one
And one for all.
There's no
There's
time.
no time for that.
No time for
There's
it.
no time for that.
The message is too
shame.
important to
It
waste
really
time
is.
with that.
We've got bigger fish to fry.
There is also no time for this.
Oh, double click keyboard. Oh, double click keyboard. Ooh, laptop, Wi-Fi, hotspot. What's the username? Check the server. Working hard, getting bored, get distracted. Google something naughty. Not safe for work, clear history. Get back down to work, printing, but the program is not responding. Your work was not safe, bullshit, control, alt, delete, Yes, there is. Well, there's no time for that sketch that we like to call the computer hacker. The computer hacker.
The computer hacker, yeah. Interesting footnote about the computer hacker. You may have noticed those actions, they're too complicated for me to learn, so I have to just go and sit over there for a little bit.
It's a real shame.
Which is a real shame. And speaking of a real shame, we really should talk about the way in which you behave day to day affects what will happen not just today, but in the future and in the future's future.
Yeah, it's all about decisions. I think that's what we want to get down to is climate change. We know.
Well, this is good. If it's about decisions.
Yeah, it's about the decisions that we make on an everyday basis.
I've got the perfect thing because I've written a choose your own adventure story. Full of little decisions, right?
Oh, God.
And I think maybe if we play it out now with the audience, it will serve as a kind of allegory for the topic of how you behave affecting, obviously, the future of climate change. How do you feel about that? Yeah, okay, well, let's do it. Okay, so I don't know if you remember those Choose Your Own Adventure stories. If you might have read them when you were kids, you might have read them to your kids, but they were sort of short fantasy novels for children. At the bottom of each page, there's a little dilemma. Say it was to either go left or right. If you want to go left, you turn to page like 37, the adventure will play out in one way. If you want to go right, you turn to page 19, the adventure will play out in a different way. So what we've done here is we've written a Choose Your Own Adventure, and we're going to play it out now with you, the audience, okay? So here's how it works. I'll give you two choices. You pick the one you like, and you cheer for the one you like. And I think as we go through it, you'll understand what this has to do with the way with the different ways in which we behave in our day-to-day life, little, small, tiny things that can affect the sort of bigger picture. So we'll do a practice run. Say the decision is to go either left or right. We start with cheers for left. And cheers for right. OK, so in that instance, a slightly bigger cheer for right, that is how it works. OK, and here we go. And don't be distracted by the friends you'll meet along the way. This is a choose your own adventure about behaviour in climate change. You're about to embark upon a perilous quest. Many before ye have tried, and many before ye have failed. However, if your resolve is strong and your heart is pure, then you, bold traveller, you may soon hold in your mortal hands a majestic treasure. The sword Hazalatanika.
Do you accept this challenge, bold travellers? Yes! Then we shall continue.
You are standing in a clearing. Tied around your waist is a knapsack containing a day's worth of food and water and a vial of monk's wood. Use it wisely.
Ahead of you lays a path that forks in two directions. The easterly path leads to a door, beyond which appears to lie a walled garden.
The westerly path leads to the mouth of a darkened cave.
Which one will you choose, bold traveller? East or west?
East to the walled garden.
Or west to the mouth of a darkened cave.
All cheer for east, the walled garden.
All cheer for west, the mouth of a darkened cave.
Oh, you've died.
That's the end. It's a real shame. That's the end. That's could have done well. Yeah. That's
What a waste.
could have. Yeah.
Should have gone east. Should have gone to the walled garden. That's where the animal man lives.
Yeah.
That's why he walled his garden, because he owned an elephant.
Yeah. And I think we can all see the allegory at play there.
Oh, hang on.
He owns an elephant, and therefore probably best not to shower every day. Probably have a shower every other day. Save a bit of water.
There's no allegory there. That wasn't really about climate change, was it? If you're honest.
Not exactly, no.
So we were supposed to come up with something about the decisions that we make about climate change.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, it was. Well, I don't know. Like we've known about this gig for about 2 months.
Yeah.
We definitely knew it was happening.
We had all the information.
We had all the information. Literally all the information. Constant updates from Pippa about it. Don't forget.
We kept getting told about it.
Yeah.
We need to do something about it.
We need to do something about it, and we kind of went, oh, I'm sure something will happen.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else will do something.
I didn't think. I thought maybe you.
We all
did.
thought.
Personally, I don't see why it would be my responsibility. I mean, I was aware it was happening, but I just kind of assumed someone else would do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, we thought we'd probably just get by on a little bit of recycling.
Puppies, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost at the end of this great night. I hope you're having a good time. We've got one dimension left. We don't want to leave that one out because otherwise the Toblerone is not the right shape. But before we bring on our final act, we'd like to bring on Jonathan Rowson, Dr. Jonathan Rowson, so that he can explain what the hell this is all about. So please welcome, with probably less jokes than everyone else, Dr. Jonathan Rowson.
Thank you. If you don't know what to say, it's always good to start by thanking people. So I want to thank the Climate Change Collaboration, first of all, for making this event possible. They funded it. I want to thank COIN, our partners in this crime, but I also want to say something about why we're here and what we're doing. I want to thank Pippa for making tonight possible, and the purpose of tonight is to illustrate, as best we could, that climate change needs more amateurs. It's been an expert discourse for too long. It's been too much people who exclude and struggle to connect with the public through their language. Now we need more experts, and we need more insight and better science and so forth. But we also need everyone on board. So we wrote this report called The 7 Dimensions of Climate Change, which is an introductory document. So if you haven't got a copy already, please download it. It's our way of trying to make climate change just simple enough. Albert Einstein famously said, everything should be as simple as possible, but not simpler. And we think by limiting it down to 7 points, you can begin to find your own place in it. So if climate change seems daunting, you don't know what to do, find one of the 7 dimensions and make friends with it. Because as the climate marchers said, and we saw some of them there, I'm not sure if it's the same march, but the rallying cry of the New York marches and the global marches of 600,000 people was that to change everything, we need everyone. So that's what this is about, and that's what I hope you'll help with. Thanks very much.
Well, we're just waiting for the final act to get their microphones on. So maybe what we'll do is carry on with a bit more Q&A. Hello, what's your name?
It's Claire.
Hi, Claire. What do you feel you've taken away from this evening? Nothing! Absolutely nothing! Waste of time! It's a good question. What do you think the dimension that Holly Byrne, the character who did a lovely dance with Jim, what do you think her dimension was?
I haven't a clue.
Hasn't a clue. Hasn't a clue. It was culture. It was culture. The culture. Yeah. See, it was. You got it now. You understand now. Culture, of course. Culture being very important. Did you enjoy being danced with Holly? Did you just go to shake my hand? That's nice. Is your name actually Jim? Are you a journalist? No. What are you? Architect. Of course you are. Of course you are an architect. Very, very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had so much fun. I don't know where these guys are, but it's exciting. What should we talk about? Well, I'll tell you a bit about myself, since you don't really know me. My name's Pippa, and I don't actually do a lot of stuff in my own voice. I actually spend a lot of time not speaking in my own voice, because my own voice is naturally quite sarcastic. For example, I like your hair. See? Gets me in trouble all the time. So I find that I just change my accent depending, like I'll just become Australian because it's so much friendlier. Isn't it? Don't you think? Like, I like your hair. See? It's so great. It's not completely weird that I do that. I actually spend a lot of my time on Radio 4 doing a lot of voices. That's what I do. I play quite varied characters. I play sort of generic northerner. I love Greg's. Generic southerner. Oh, I've never been in a Greg's. And generic foreign person. I like to work in Greg's. So that's what I do in my life. It's not even just my voice that I change, because I think we change the kind of person that we are quite a lot of the time when we're meeting other people. So I run Sunday Assembly. That's actually how I ended up getting involved with the RSA Sunday Assembly. And when I'm doing that, I'm sort of like, excited Pippa, woo, life's amazing. And then there's Pippa the wife, which is more like, oh, I'm drunk again. And then there's Pippa the daughter, which is more, no, Mum, we're not thinking of having children yet. I put the yet on to give her hope. What I'll probably do is wait for her eyesight to go, and then I'll buy her tiny tears, and I'll put it in a plastic box next to my bed and say, you can't touch her, she was premature. That's probably what I'll do. Yeah, good. Oh, they're here, guys. Well, are you ready for your final act, ladies and gentlemen? Please welcome the Showstoppers!
Yes, hello, here we go. Some setting up to be done. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, we are the Showstoppers. We're going to be talking about money. And if we understand the current world zeitgeist correctly, we think the best way to put across a message is with a parody 1930s swing song. I believe that's right. That's what the kids are after today.
That's what the kids love.
What we're doing now, ladies and gents, is known in the industry as filling, whilst Duncan gets his act together. He's plugging himself in looking for some mice down there. He's got some cables.
He's got stuck. Still stuck.
He's doing very
Phil!
well.
Phil!
What we good? Yeah, Phil.
That's my
Phil.
name. I'm Phil. That was a
Yeah.
pun on my name as opposed to filling, which is what Andrew's going to continue
What we really
doing now.
shouldn't be doing is noticing how clumsy Duncan looks at the moment, how difficult he's finding it under pressure, because that would make him feel embarrassed and upset. And it's all... How's it going? Here we go. We've got power.
We've nearly got power. Have we got responsibility, though? Yes. Yes,
That's
we
the
all
question.
have.
Here we go. What do you think, Ruth, about money and climate change?
Well, from my extensive research,
Yeah.
I'd say that money is the key to climate change in many ways.
Go on.
Well, if you follow the money, you'll find that if we can persuade the money makers and the money havers, not me, that what I do, you know, rinsing out honey pots and putting them in the recycling, actually buying recycled loo paper, not just recycling and then not buying recycled, right? Because that's pointless. This is all I know about climate change. If we can persuade the money makers that that's a good thing, then the polar bears will be fine.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think the following, Ruth.
In a song, perhaps.
When the planet's kaput and we draw our last breath, we'll be wishing economics hadn't bored us to death.
And though we're aware there's a whole lot to lose, when the subject turns to graphs and forecasts, we start to snooze.
So to clear up this hash, we gotta follow the cash. The guys at the top need incentive to stop.
And
money makes the world heat up.
I fill the kettle half full and think that I've done my bit.
But 1,000 Saudi oil men are still getting rich.
I take the bus, not the car, pat myself on the back.
And the global flow of capital remains on track.
But what's putting us in peril is worth $100 a barrel. The city boys are grinning while the Amazon is thinning as
Money makes the world heat up.
Maybe you're not convinced. You've been listening to Russell Brand.
Capitalism's days are numbered. The revolution is at hand.
But while you're destroying the system, our opportunity is fading. And we should try it. Get excited by renewables and carbon trading.
So round up your dollars, your euros and yen. Ditch your shares in coal and gas and just start again.
Green energy's great,
but its image is lame. So flash the cash and play those suckers at their own game. In a Vegas casino, surrounded by girls. A wind farm baron's gambling big with diamonds and pearls.
A Middle East sultan living in style.
And carbon sequestration's how he built his whole pile.
Time to rethink
before humanity's extinct. Perhaps it might be worth investing in the earth. Money makes the world heat up.
Everybody now, one more time.
Money makes the world heat up.
If you don't sing along, you don't love penguins.
Yeah.
Money makes the world heat up. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a fantastic time. Check the website for more events. Good night.